Hey guys, welcome back to Vinceville Customs. So today I'm going to share with you on how I clean my airbrushes. Now, I know I'm probably going to get a lot of hate and a lot of people who come into this video saying what I'm doing is wrong or I shouldn't be telling anybody this. So I'm not telling anybody this is how you should clean your airbrushes. I'm just going to share with you on how I clean my airbrushes and what I've been doing for years. Now, there's a lot of people out there who claim other ways work better. I've had people tell me just use Windex and water when I first got into the hobby, and then I switched on to that glass cleaner formula that I have on my YouTube that I found out from the other channel. So that's good for like if you put blue paint in here and you're spraying something with blue paint. And then after that you want to use yellow. You don't want to put yellow into the blue because you create green. So you got to clean out that blue paint. So that's good for doing that. But if your paint gets all caked up and dried, that Glass Plus or Windex is not going to get rid of all this caked up paint. Now, I've had people who tell me get the ultrasonic cleaner for jewelry and get the ultrasonic cleaner fluids that you can get. And what you do is you put your airbrush in there and then you turn it on and it vibrates and it's supposed to break up all that paint. I have tried that. I have tried it with different chemicals and that has never ever worked for me. People says, oh, you don't need to use the ultrasonic, you just need the jewelry cleaner and let it sit for like an hour. That doesn't work. I tried it where I let this stuff sit all night long and still the paint would not come off these airbrushes. And this is just acrylic paint. I don't really use enamels or lacquers much. So I scrapped that idea. So a few years back, I got to the point where I was just like, you know what, I need to clean these things, and all these other ways people are telling me are not working. I mean, I even tried those, airbrush cleaners that you buy, the solutions in containers. That still didn't work. So what I did one day, and like I said, this was years back when I went to art school, I used to use a Windsor&newton brush cleaner and restorer to get my brushes back to life from acrylic paints. So what I did is one day, I pretty much took my airbrush apart and I started using this stuff to clean it all out. And basically I got my airbrush down to the point where it was like purely brand new and metal and everything. Now, a lot of people are going to say that this stuff is very bad to put in your airbrush. You probably shouldn't use it because it will destroy like Teflon or rubber pieces in your brush. So, if you know your breakdown of your brush and you know where all the parts are, you can use this where it won't ruin anything. So we're going to be using this Iwata HPCH brush for this video today. This is my go-to brush for everything because I'm going to show you how I break this down and clean it. Now, I do have other Iwatas here I'll be cleaning too, but that'll be off camera. I'm going to show you how this brush restorer will bring back this brush to life too, just before we start cleaning everything. This is all caked up acrylic paint on here. So I'll show you how that stuff works. So what you need to know is you need to know everything about your airbrush. So I know in this airbrush when I break this part back, there is a little bit of a rubber piece here. It's just a little rubber piece here. So that little rubber piece there is something you really don't want to get into this Windsor&newton stuff because it might destroy it. I do know there is another rubber piece over here holding this part down. But then there's also another rubber piece in here where this trigger hits. And then inside here, in the very center here, there's a Teflon circle piece in here. Now, a lot of people are going to say, and which will probably rage, that if I use this brush store and it gets onto that Teflon piece, you're going to destroy it. Now, I have been doing this stuff for years, and I think I replaced this Teflon piece maybe once a year, if that, and I still don't have an issue. So, as long as this like restorer is not like sitting in there for hours on a day, I don't think it's going to destroy that Teflon piece. But if you have an airbrush that has a lot of these rubber like seals all over your brush, this stuff might destroy that rubber stuff. But I think they make this stuff well enough to know that people are going to be using like lacquers and enamels and stuff, that this stuff should last. But like I said, I use these Iwatas. I know where everything is on these, so I haven't had an issue. Now, I'm not going to go into too deep, but if you do your research, you can actually buy a kit that you can replace your Teflon. So this is a Teflon screw piece. So if you unscrew this piece in here and all these in here, you can actually go into here and you can unscrew this Teflon piece. So these are ones I've done in the past. So as you can see, there's this little screw right here, right? And then in that little screw, there's a little white Teflon piece, as you can see. So this screw goes into there, and what it does it screws into that little Teflon piece in there. So if you ever get a point where like you're getting paint, like say you put your airbrush on an angle and you're getting paint coming back into here in this area here, that's because that Teflon piece probably is worn out or stretched or just deteriorating on you. So that's something to think about. I'll show that in a little bit more too, kind of how to change it, but I'm not going to change it for this video. So that being said, here are some tools that I use for cleaning my brushes. So if you go on eBay, you can go and buy yourself a airbrush cleaning kit. They have these little bristle pieces on a little keychain. I pretty much usually only use the smaller ones pretty much for my airbrushes. You can see they're all pretty much bent up. This right here is for the Iwata to get your needle, nozzle thing off. We'll kind of show you that. This is a little tiny screw thing, but it'll make your life a lot easier. And this right here comes in a kit, but this is kind of a cleaning like a needle type thing. It's kind of like a needle, but it's cut in like half at the tip, as you can see. It's kind of helps you to get in there and scrape out some paint you can't get in with any other tool. And then they also put in these kits these metal things. I don't really use these too much because I'm scared of putting these into the thing, because they're like, it's basically the same thing as this. It just doesn't have the bristles on it. So this could actually like ruin your item. So these I really don't use too much, you know. And then we have a little bit of grease, which this came with in a very old kit, but every other kit I've bought since then really doesn't come with this grease stuff. But I still use it every once in a while, and I'll show you. So what we do is I'm going to pop off the cap in a second. I'll put some paint in there, and we'll show you what this Restore does to the paintbrush. So let me get that set up. Okay, so with this brush cleaner and Restore, you got to be very careful with this stuff. It's very strong. Like I said, it's made to bring these brushes back to life and get paint off. But it will destroy any paint that's on your wood, though. So like if you have a wooden paintbrush or like a cheap brush, like even these blue ones here, like these blue ones, it will destroy like this paint on here. But it's just made for just mostly the metal part and your brush up top. So as you can see, this stuff is very hard and stuff. So you put this in here, and what this does is it's just going to start breaking down all that paint. Now it doesn't happen in seconds, but it happens pretty fast. So you can see all that paint's coming off. Now if it's an old brush, of course, which this is a very, very old brush, I use it all the time, I mean the bristles are going to be messy and stiff. It's not going to be a super soft, but it's still going to get all that paint off. So you can see how it's just taking all that paint off the piece. Now of course if you're worried, you could put goggles on, you could put gloves on. Me, like I say, personally, I just don't care anymore. So this will also probably mess up this stuff here on the table. So as you can see, you put this on the table, it probably will like ruin that like rubber pad, but these rubber pads I get cheap anyway. So what you want to do is you just kind of like, you know, you put your brush in there. So you can see all that paint's coming off of it now. And you can see like the brown brush is coming back. Now the very tip is still caked up, but you can like with a brush though, if you put it in a little cup, you can like let it sit there for like, you know, 5 minutes or so, come back. But actually doing this gets the paint off fairly faster. And if any paint that's up here too, you see that little green like little paint up there, like if you rub that off, that all starts to come off up top. So that's all starting to come out. So this is like great for your paintbrushes too. So if your paintbrushes are getting really messy, you see all that stuff coming out there. Now you can, you know, you can pour this stuff back into the bottle if you want. I usually don't. But I mean, you can see all this paint starting to come off this brush. There's still a lot more on the tip there because it was just been caked up for a long time. But you can see it's coming off on my finger. See? It'll keep going and going, and there's a little like this green paint there. Just wipe it off a little bit more, and you can see it just keeps getting cleaned up. So this is what's great about this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go pour this off into this little bucket I have over here, which is fine. So, alright, now like I said, we're going to start working on this brush here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit here, just a little bit. I don't like this bottle has lasted me for, oh god, I've had this bottle for like 3 years now. You don't really need to like go through a lot. So as you can see, I can't pull out this brush needle here because it's caked up. Now I can pull this back, but it's caked up in there. So usually what I do is I grab my pliers, oops, gotta be careful, and just pull this out. You don't need to go crazy, but so if you pull it out, you can kind of see there's a little bit of cakeness over there. So if you grab a little bit of this, right, a little bit of this restorer, go upwards. Just go upwards with it. Don't pull down to bend the needle. Just go upwards. And basically, that gets you a nice, good, clean needle. You know, you don't go downwards. You'll bend that tip. Just go upwards. And then I can put this aside. Next step. So breaking down this airbrush. So I know a lot of things with this airbrush. So basically, I'm going to pull out the spring part here. So this is the mechanism. Just make sure you don't drop and lose stuff. You can. Like I said, I'm so used to doing this stuff. So this is the whole spring area here. As you can see, there's a spring and all this stuff there. I don't know all the parts, so I'm not going to sit here and like explain all this stuff. And that's the needle here. Now, this stuff right here. This part right here is, you know, the quick disconnect and all this. This stuff I do not clean because I don't need to. This I pretty much take off. So you can see there's a little rubber piece here, right? A little rubber piece there. That I always put aside. Now there is a little piece in here, and there is a little bit of a rubber piece in there. So this part I try to be very careful. Now some people will tell you don't use the needle to push anything. So you know the back of your needle, it's got this little flat part. So all I do is this. I just pop that piece out like that, right? You don't use the tip there. You don't want to bend that. I just use this. It doesn't hurt it. So you can see this part got a little bit of caking paint there because what happens is sometimes I drip paint into here by accident. So basically I'll just take that part and throw it right in there. Now, these parts here. Now this part is getting caked up pretty bad in here. As you can kind of see, I dropped a lot of paint in there. So I don't, sometimes I take this part off, sometimes I don't. I just open it up all the way to clean it. Now this top part here is a pain. This is what is the cap. Basically I just use my pliers and I pull that off. As you can see, having any of this residue on your hand starts making all this paint tacky. So this top part right here, the cap, as you can see, it gets a lot of caked up paint and all there. I just drop it in there. Now this is the expensive part. This is your nozzle part up there. That little piece right there is like $36. 30 bucks. It's, or if you're lucky you get them around maybe 25. That part there is where your needle comes through. Now if that needle piece, that little piece in the center, if that spreads open because you like spread it out and you keep jamming your needle in there, that goes bad. You want to make sure it's always like that way, so be very careful with it. And this is where this screw piece comes into effect. So instead of sitting there trying to get a pliers and accidentally crush this thing, you get one of these Iwata pieces which goes onto it really nice and easy, and it just screws right off. Now be careful when you screw this off. If you drop and lose this, that's $30 you lost. So what happens is in there can get caked up a lot, like in there. So what I like to do is on my computer screen, I like to hold it and I like to look through it. And if I see it's caked up and I can't see it, I just drop it in there. Okay? So now we have the brush all broken down. So my next step is I'm going to grab my old camcorder and we're going to go into the bathroom because I don't have a slop sink in the house. I wish I did in my garage. And I'm going to show you how I use this brush restore stuff and the paper towels and Q-tips, and we're going to get all this cleaned up, and we're also going to use this. Now, you can use latex gloves. I think this stuff won't eat latex gloves, but if you have those blue or those clear plasticky gloves, I think this stuff will eat it. So basically I just use my hands. I mean, if you're into painting oils or acrylics and you know you're gonna get dirty and whatever. So my next step is we take these brushes, we take our airbrush, and we take this cleaner and we go into the bathroom, and this stuff here I just let sit. I just let that sit and soak in there. It's not going to be a problem. So I'm going to go get set up in the bathroom, and I'll show you how I get this stuff really cleaned up, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so we're in the bathroom. Excuse the fan and everything. So what I usually do is I pretty much put the plunger down because I don't, I don't mind a little bit of this stuff gets caked up at the bottom, whatever. So you can see how this is all looking. What I have next to me is a bunch of paper towels. There is my brushes. I have some Q-tips here as well. And pretty much the way I work this is there's a few ways of doing this. If you feel you don't want to use these chemicals and you want to do it a different way, you can try and just clean these things out this way. Now, make sure when you use these brushes, you use the smallest one that goes in there. Don't try and jam the biggest piece in here because it's not going to go and you're going to destroy your airbrush. Pretty much like I say, I only use the very smallest ones because they're small enough to go through here all the way into where the Teflon piece is. So normally what I'll do is I'll pretty much just put one in right away if I can. So as you can see, it kind of goes through. Hopefully you can kind of see it. Not really sure if you can. But it goes all the way through. Now, sometimes if I'm airbrushing and I got to get something clean right away and I can't do all this stuff, I'll take this and I'll do this real quick to clean it up and go from there. Now the thing is, you really don't want to get all this, Windsor&newton stuff in this area. Unless you get a lot of paint issues and you're dropping paint in here and you're getting a lot of paint on this end of your airbrush over here behind the nylon and stuff, then you have to do some really good cleaning and it's a pain in the ass. But if you could kind of do this, you're really good to go. Now the idea is don't keep the airbrush at an angle backwards, keep the airbrush going down forward. So what I do is, like I say, I get messy. I don't care that I do this, but it's just the way I work. So what I'll do is I'll just pour some in here like so. And basically, I'll just go like this, kind of start getting this kind of cleaned up a bit. And then see how it comes out like so. And then you can see all the dirtiness down in there. So if you want, you can, what I'll also do is I'll put a Q-tip here and I'll put my finger at the edge of this. And I'll put some more in here. You don't have to go too crazy with it. And then I'll just use my Q-tip going like this. Just kind of get around the area, get all this paint. What I'll do is I'll spin it around at the bottom in there. Be careful though, you don't want to use like shitty Q-tips and get like all that fabric and stuff, cotton stuck at the bottom. And then what I'll do is I'll use the Q-tip around the area, kind of go around here, like so. I'll just get it like going. Like I said, I don't care that I get this on my hands. It's not the end of the world. So you can see how much paint and nastiness is in there. And then what I'll do is I'll grab a paper towel, get the paper towel here, and just wipe this around. Now I'll let this come out. I'll just kind of get all this paint, all this wiped around. It doesn't have to be 100% clean, but enough. Get around in here, get all this stuff going in there, and then you can kind of see starting to get cleaned up a little bit more down in there. So the next step is, I'll throw this paper towel away. What I'll do is I'll grab the tool, if there's any little liquid at the bottom, and sort of kind of brush out that paint that's in that screw there. Okay? And if there's any paint around this screw, any areas I can get in around there. I mean, it's not the end of the world you have paint outside your airbrush. It really isn't. But if you just want to make it clean, you can. And like I said, you can see it splattering all over my sink. Just be careful. If you want to wear glasses, whatever. So I'll put the plunger down, run some water through it. Kind of see how water's going through the edge there. Let water go through here. Now I'm going a little bit slow for you guys. Normally I do this real fast. Like, real fast. This is like slow compared to how I do it. Just keep going, okay? Like that. Take another paper towel. And then from here, which I can't show you in the camera, but I'll blow through the piece. Make sure I'm getting out all that water. And then what I do is I take this up to my lights in the bathroom, which I'll do right now. I can't really show you. And I try to make sure going through this piece, it's nice and clear through here. So I'll look at the light. It's got a nice clear tube. I'm not seeing any paint. And pretty much, like, even some of this paint gets kind of to the point where it's so soft you can actually just use your fingernail and just rip it right off and go from there. Okay, so the main part is in this area here. Like I say, down in there, if that part ever gets really caked up back in there and you're having an issue and blah blah blah, that's where you got to get really messy. You got to get a Q-tip and you got to get in here and you got to clean that and stuff. So you can see there is some paint particles down in there. It will get a little, but you got to be careful doing this because you'll get cotton stuck in the bottom. So that's a little bit, that's something where it's like a full-blown clean and you got to take your time. But just want to make sure one more time, looking at the light, we're nice and clear, and make sure this is turning well where it's not caked up. We're turning pretty good. And okay, so that is good for this brush. So what I will do is I'm going to go back and we're going to finish cleaning it up with the other parts, and we should be good to go. I'm going to leave this like this because I got my other airbrushes I need to clean, so this is fine just staying like this. Alright, so we're back out of the bathroom, and just to make sure, if you want to make sure that you did clean this pretty well, take the back end of your brush, not the needle, the back end, or if you have an old needle, and what I do is I just kind of making sure we got a nice good, everything's working pretty well. Making sure everything is cleaned out pretty well, there's no issues. I'm looking through it again with the light at the computer screen, we got nothing caked up. And we are looking good. Now, if you're pulling your brush and you're still getting some kind of a grab and it's not pulling, you didn't clean it. But other than that, we're good on that. So this part is all cleaned up. Let's see. Hopefully you can kind of, maybe you see it in the camera a bit. No, it's kind of hard. But it's pretty much ready to go. Like I said, any of this little paint that's still caked up here comes right off with your fingers now because that Windsor&newton stuff really cleans it. That's the thing, is you don't want paint particles and stuff drying in here and then going through here. That's where you get the clogs. Alright, pretty much down to the last wire here. So this is where I use this tool, and basically we'll grab a old tweezers, and first we'll pull this piece out, which is the, what is it, the nozzle, the cap, or whatever you want to call it. Grab yourself a paper towel. The reason why I'm using the tweezers is because I just don't feel like putting my finger in it. And just wipe this down. Get this all wiped off. Make sure it gets out of that screw area. So you see all that paint that came off of there. And just looking around there. Now, if you have any little caked up stuff in that little circle piece, basically this tool, don't jam it in there. Just go a little bit light in the edge, you know. And just make sure there's no paint. And that's all. That works out pretty well. So that piece is pretty much cleaned up now. Now this other little piece that kind of went over here for your plunger, where you push down your stuff, pull this out like so. Be careful. Wipe it down. Like so. There's a little bit of paint on it, not much. And that's pretty much clean. Now, the hardest part and the most part you have to be very careful with is this nozzle or cap or whatever the part is. I don't know. Pull this out. Be careful, don't crush it. I'm just trying to grab it so this way I don't crush the tip. And just put it there, alright? So that's soaked in pretty well. Now this part is where I go very careful. You take this piece here and just put this in. Don't jam it in there, just kind of go around in a circle. If there's any paint, it'll get caught up on that piece in there, right? Sometimes this stuff gets caked up a lot and sometimes it doesn't. So now I'm not putting the needle all the way in the tip, not all the way down there and jam it. It's like kind of like only like halfway. I'm just making sure there's no crap in here. Making sure it's looking pretty good. And then just blow on it and put it up on the computer screen, you know, just to make sure it's nice and clear. There's no paint caked up. And we are looking pretty good. So, now, basically, after this step, we start putting it together. Now, I do have what is called Super Lube. Now this is Airbrush Super Lube. This is made for these Iwatas. They put it in the bottles. I never really knew exactly what this stuff was for. All I really do is coat my needle, and I'll show you that a little bit later. But for right now, we got to put this back together. So what I do first is this piece here, this little piece here, which, like I said, this came with this grease. So what I do is I normally just kind of squeeze out this grease, and I get a little grease in here, just on this piece, just this one alone, nothing too crazy. And then I put this into here. Now, if you have a tweezers, if you want to use tweezers, you get that piece. See, I'm so used to doing this. I got that piece back underneath there. So that piece is in there, and that's the plunger. Next, we take this part here, screw this on. Like I said, every airbrush is different. You don't have to tighten this to the point where you strip it, just enough just to kind of grab it. Only because I find that hand tightening sometimes causes an issue. So that piece is in there like so. Next step is pretty much putting these back pieces. Now, if sometimes this piece gets caked up because you're putting paint in there and all, you could kind of just get this cleaned off as well if you really want to. Like I said, if you see any paint areas, don't be afraid to just dip it real quick in some of this Windsor stuff. And then that kind of gets cleaned up. Now with this one here, what I like to do is put a little grease on this as well. You know, just kind of little, because these are the parts that are kind of moving. Like I said, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but I've been doing it for years and I haven't had any issue. So this part you put in this way and then you turn it. Because as you can see on this piece at the bottom, there's a flat side and there's a little knot side. The knot side goes there, so when you pull it down, it hits that metal. So that piece is now squeezable, right? So now we take this part and we screw this in. You can hand tighten it, but I like to give it just a little bit more of a hand tighten, nothing major. This screw piece goes on the back, like so. Alright, now be careful with this nozzle piece. You want to slowly put this one on, like so. And then you get your screw. And boom. Now this, careful. You don't need to tighten it and strip it, because if you strip this and that little piece breaks off and you're in there, I don't know how the hell you're going to get that out. So it's just a little bit of a boop and you're done. That's it. Take this piece, put this piece back on. Now, in the old days, I was told that you put beeswax around here. I do have a container of beeswax. You can kind of, I'll show it to you. You don't have to, at least I don't, but this came with my Badger airbrushes. This is like an old beeswax. So certain old airbrushes I have, I know that I have to put a beeswax around here. But that's on the old Badger ones I used to use and this one I have left. But these Iwatas, I don't need to do that. So you put this piece on here like so. Yes, mine is a little bit stripped. Some people tell you you only should do it hand tighten it, but I just make sure it's there. So pretty much my airbrush is all cleaned up and everything. So what I like to do for my last step, like I say, I don't know if this is the correct way, but people all do different things. All I use this Super Lube is I put a little bit on my finger like that, and I just kind of coat the airbrush, the needle, like so. Basically what it is, it just basically coats the needle so this way none of the paint sticks to it. And be very careful putting this piece in there. Make sure this isn't too tight. Put this over here. And like I always tell, you don't jam your needle in there. You don't jam it, you just put it in till it stops, tighten it, and boom. You got a brush, and you can see I'm not getting stuck. Everything's kicking back well. So this airbrush here, as you can see, is clogged. It's kind of, this little piece here is all loose. It's not pulling back. That's because I'm clogged up in here. This one's a very heavy use one. But that's the way that works. So next step is, what I do is I go to make sure I got a nice flow going through. So we're going to go over to the air. Well, actually, you know what? Let me just stop it right here. I will kind of grab the hose and we'll figure it out, and then I'll show you how it works. Okay, so I'm over here in the airbrush booth, so I like to test first before I do anything. You know, there's been times when I've actually cleaned it like these and then I still have a problem because I missed some kind of like caked up thing up the top and I have to go back and re-clean it. But most of the time it works out pretty well. So don't kick this on in your face or your hand right away, because there still might be some like liquid of that Windsor&newton. So spray it away from you. Make sure there's nothing in there. Make sure you got a flow going. Make sure it sounds good. And then what I do is, just to be on the safe side, I'll take some of my airbrush cleaner, kick on my fan, and just see we got a nice flow coming through, as you can see. It's not spraying upwards, it's not clogged, it's looking good. So, not bad. So what I'll do is I'll take a watery paint, just something watery, so I have some transparent gray here. So what we'll do is we'll just make sure we got a good flow going. So put a couple drops in there just to be, because I don't need to throw any thick paint. And make sure everything's going smooth. See how we got a nice flow line going there? We'll get a little bit closer. Alright, over here. Alright, so you gotta make sure that when you're pulling back, it's not spraying. Like, alright, so I'm just hitting it, no paint's coming out. That means I'm at a good position and everything. Now, if I pull it, just make sure we can show you guys. So make sure we got a nice flow. See, we got a nice flow. It's going nice and smooth. It's going thicker, and we got a nice flow coming out. We hit it with some cleaner. Get in there, dump that out, and there we go. My airbrush is all clean. So that is how I clean my brushes. Make sure you guys know how to break your airbrush down, know all your parts, don't lose anything, don't crush anything, keep everything nice and clean. Be careful if you decide to use the Windsor&newton. I do not put Windsor&newton in this and spray it through it and then go back to airbrushing. I don't like to spray that Windsor&newton stuff only because it could be very potent in the air. I just use it to clean my brush like I just did, and that is it. The only cleaner I really ever put through my airbrush is the, Glass Plus stuff I mix up. That's all I ever do. So this is how I clean my brushes. Maybe to give you guys an idea if you like to do it, or if you feel that it's too risky and you don't want to use that stuff, that's fine. But this is what I do. So, but like I say, I did this very, very slow for you guys. Normally, I'll do this stuff in under a minute. I'll move so fast. I'll get this stuff so clean that there is no issues. But if you want, invest in the extra parts. Make sure you have a lot of extra stuff. I'll give you guys a little bit of a quick look at my airbrush stuff down here. Alright, so the camera was falling, but I figure, I'll show you guys what's going on. So you can see all my parts. I got my other airbrushes over in here. This is an old Badger and an old Pache, but these are for specific things. I don't use these normally. This is another brush I'm going to have to clean up today. But you can see I have all my parts. I save all my extra needles when I bend them, only because it's good for, moving parts around, sculpting, just to have extra needles. Even though they bend, I keep them. I have a lot of extra O-ring parts. Any parts that ever go bad or that I get rid of, or caps or whatever, I keep that stuff just in case. You can see all my other little screws, some extra lube stuff here as well. Over here you can see I have a backup airbrush, my other airbrush where I don't like to keep out. I keep in here from dust free. More O-rings, extra needles, caps, all kinds of stuff. I keep all my boxes too, just in case I ever need to ship these stuff back out to, Iwata or something, because I need a repair. I'd rather just put it in like the box or something. But you can see all the stuff that I have here. So let me go set up on a thing and we'll close out the video. Okay, so my brush is all clean. Boom, pull it back, no problem. Everything is nice and clean. You can see the cup in there, looking pretty good. No paint and stuff, just on my hands, and I'm good. So that is how I clean my airbrush. Now, like I said, I went slow for you guys. I do this stuff really super fast. I break everything down in front of me, go to the bathroom, 30 seconds, use that stuff, use the brush, clean it out, run through water through it, and I'm done. I don't let it sit for hours. I don't let it sit for minutes. Literally like 30 seconds and I'm ready to go. The only stuff that sits is the caps and stuff in there, only because it's a pain in the ass to get that paint out if it's not really soft. So be very careful with your equipment. Don't crush stuff. Don't over tighten. Don't lose pieces, because if you lose an important piece, go from there. Study your airbrush. Any of you guys that are new to your airbrushing, study your parts. Know how much this part costs, that part costs, that part costs, that part costs. So this way, when you break it down, I got to be very careful and not lose that. Otherwise, that's a $30 part, or that's a $5 part, or that's a $10 part. So learn your parts and learn how to break everything down, because all your airbrushes are different. They all break down a little bit different, but they're still basically the same. Now, as far as the whole Teflon thing, that's a little bit more advanced. Something like that, if you were to take out that Teflon, you have to screw it back in very slow and like very lightly tighten, because if you over tighten it, you squeeze the Teflon to the point where it closes. So that's a whole different beast altogether. So that's something you got to be careful of. But other than that, hopefully it gives you new guys to the hobby an idea of how to break down your brush and how to clean it. Anybody that's been in the hobby a long time, you're more than welcome to tell me I'm nuts for doing what I do and that it's the wrong way. But like I said, this is what I do. You don't have to do it, but this is what helps me in my workflow, and I get my stuff clean, and I haven't had any issues. So, last thing to say, don't put this stuff in the airbrush and spray it. Always clean out very well, because this stuff, if you get it, breathe it in. If you spray it on plastic stuff or you spray it on your statues, it will destroy your paints. So, but it is great for restoring brushes and your airbrushes. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll be back with some more videos.